Dr. Snow, Chapter 3. December 20th, Secret Village, morning. The all-hands meeting was called for the next morning at 0900 sharp, and with all the available agents in their designated spots around the large conference table, right on the dot of 9, Santa started the show. The Chief of Operations, Agent Moo, sat next to Santa, with the gruff look upon his face he often used when he wanted everyone to pay the utmost attention. His gray hair, weathered face, and formal attire gave him the airs of a British schoolmaster, and he spoke with an accent that only enhanced the illusion. His arms were folded across his chest, and his lips pursed and pouted in the pure posture of protocol. On the opposite side of Santa, Agent Alpha sat like a superstar, and smiled with the confidence of a little person much bigger than his britches. His jet black hair and chiseled, dimpled chin fit him much as the expensive shiny suit he wore like second skin. He was so polished and confident, he had to be delusional. It was just impossible to be as good as he thought he was. Next to Alpha was his complement, Agent Beta. She was his partner on most of his missions. She was a little taller than Alpha, which really bugged him, very fit and athletic, and a lot more cautious and cagey than he was, and was usually sent along to keep Alpha from going particularly ballistic. If Alpha cried shark, Beta was there to test the waters. They complemented each other well, and it suited Alpha just fine. Seated next to Beta was Agent Gamma, wearing a white lab coat and clutching a fat folder of scientific data. He was thin and slightly anemic from long hours in the laboratory, and not enough common sense to get something to eat. His hair was similar to Agent Epsilon, in that it never seemed to be neat, but rather stuck out at all angles like a light brown Brillo pad. He was an expert on atomic energy and radiation, and was currently working on a design for a real ray gun. He was the kind of agent they always wanted to keep on their side, desperately. To his right was Agent Delta. Delta was a master of disguise and a pilot, so you could also call him a master of disguise. Presently he was dressed as an airline captain, and his splendid blue and white uniform and peaked cap fit right in with the formality of the occasion. He had a thick mustache, and his black hair was high and tight, but that was subject to change at any instant. It would not be a surprise if, before the meeting was done, he had magically morphed into a Martian, or anything else you could imagine. This was one elusive elf. Next to Delta was Agent Epsilon, whom we have already met. Like Gamma, he had a thick folder in his hands, also wearing a white lab coat, but his was buttoned up, and his hair showed signs of having been visited by the brush fairy since his last encounter with Santa and Mo. He was on his best behavior, at least for the moment, and clearly ready to make his usual small but positive contribution. He was even smiling, but not too much as to look goofy. A few seats over was the Angle Man, Agent Theta, and he was still smiling with pride about how well his snowman app had worked. He was prone to be a bit full of himself, but in a likable way. No one really gets too upset with a person that takes great pride in their work, and he simply swelled with the anticipation of imminent praise. After all, he did deserve it. Next to Theta was the smallest agent of them all, but hardly the least significant, Agent Iota. Iota was so small that he could get in and out of just about anywhere or anything without any trouble, and without being seen. He often disguised himself as a poodle or cat, and just trotted by like a dumb animal. No one would expect that the spaniel was the spy. He was extremely useful in some of the more impossible missions, and Santa wished he had a whole pack of Iotas. A little further along the circle was Agent Pi. She was sweet, round, and approximately 3.14159 feet tall. She was a programmer, a geometry and trigonometry expert, and was often an integral factor for putting a closed loop around the bad guys. Santa could not envision a world without Pi. Mo Tonka sat to Santa's left, and next to him was Agent Kai, the master gadget man. Kai kept Santa supplied with the latest doodads and widgets, and had saved Santa's bacon more than a few times. Kai was also a proper British bloke, and was often quite peeved when Santa predictably failed to return his high-tech handiwork in pristine condition, as pleaded and promised. What was worse, Santa always seemed to have some ready-made excuse, such as, "It was in the shark's mouth, Kai, and I was in no mood to feed the mouth that bites me." Kai, of course, was simply not amused. As they were about to begin, Agent Omega showed up a whole 30 seconds late. Omega was always last and often missed the boat completely. There was always one in the crowd, and he was always it. Santa cleared his throat to settle down the murmuring and began his presentation. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice, and I hope I didn't seriously interrupt anyone's sleep schedule." He glared at Agent Omega, and Omega melted a little deeper into his chair. "As we all know, the world is in a very dangerous and precarious state these days, meaning that organizations such as ours have to be more predictive and proactive than we have been. No longer can we wait for problems and disasters to happen. We must do everything in our power to anticipate and prevent them from happening at all. A task that is fraught with serious complications and limitations, but that does not mean we should give up. Conversely, we must double our efforts and go the extra kilometer, and probably further." There was a general murmur of consensus encircling the table as Santa continued. "Therefore, it is with some regret I must pursue a lead to Manhattan Island immediately, and risk not being back in time for Christmas." Now the murmuring became louder and more negative. After all, if one Christmas has to be postponed in order to make a world a safer place, it will be more than worth it. Not only that, but I don't need to be here to run the show. You are more than capable of getting the job done by yourselves. Now the protests began, starting with Mu himself. "Agent Sigma, this is totally contrary to our standard operating procedure. Christmas is always top priority, and this is just to pursue a lead. Where is the clear and present danger?" Agent Alpha, whom always had a complaint and was almost always asked to go, was next. "If we're leaving today, I need a few hours to prepare. I need to meditate to get my karma synchronized with my poet Sitva. I have to find someone to take care of my pedigree Rottweiler. I need to pack enough of my special probiotics to last the whole mission. I need to pick out and pack my wardrobe. I need to cancel 3 or 4 special appointments, depending on the duration. I need to..." Agent Beta chimed in moments after Alpha. "If he's going, I'm going, so you will need me to check out the weather. You need me to accumulate the data on all the other agents in the field, including our agents, their agents, foreign agents, and counter-agents. You would need complete profiles on the main suspect and/or suspects. You would need a primary plan of attack, a secondary plan, and a contingency plan." Mo, of course, had to add his 2.5 cents. "Well, if you're leaving me in charge of this mess, and assuming you don't make it back for Christmas, which will totally suck, I will need access to the list, access to the security codes for the sleigh, a booster seat for the pilot's chair, a new red suit in my size, lessons in chimney diving, which I'm not looking forward to, a 10% raise, some way to tell the entire planet I am lactose intolerant, dog repellent in the super jumbo size, oh, and I hate macadamia nuts in my cookies, so that's another problem. Steroids so I can drag that big heavy bag around. I need to go to the store to get more of my special shampoo. I need to call my mother to tell her I'm going away, as I always do. I need to have my favorite suit dry cleaned because in the last mission it got strawberry stains on the pants and you just can't clean the pants by themselves. I need to pick out a few new ties because I'm bored with the ones I have and I need a fresh look and a new suit or two for good measure. And I need to go to the gym to get my abs as tight as possible so my six-pack really pops out for the ladies. You will need me to coordinate with Agent Kai on the equipment you need and in required instructions. You need a tentative schedule and for your field operations, including a breakdown of objectives and priorities. You'll need me to meet with Agent Delta to chart a flight plan and register with the FAA. And if you think I'm just going to sit here for a week or more without you calling in to give me a complete update at least every 4 hours on the hour, then you're going to have to get yourself another right-hand elf. Because I'll be a basket case before you return. If you return, I will need you to make sure that your last will and testament is on file and that you remember to leave that really cool car of yours to me, which you promised, remember. And if I'm going to deal with those nasty reindeer, I need a list of their names, because I can never remember it past Donna and Blitzer. Santa slapped both of his palms on the table with a loud smack. There were a few sheepish grins and a few nervous giggles, but finally silence. Santa put on his own faux smile and continued speaking with visible annoyance. All of your concerns and protests have been recorded and duly noted. I'm sure there were plenty of others that either have not been expressed or I couldn't hear over the clamor. For instance, I'm sure Agent Kai has a few gems. Kai? Well, yes, if you're asking, which comes as a near shock to me. But you love to play with my loyalties and dedication as standard procedure, ignoring all of my pleas for swift and responsible return of all special equipment in as pristine condition as possible, which always somehow proves to be impossible. And you never give me ample audience to go over even a fraction of the instructional materials necessary to operate the equipment in a professional and responsible manner, treating these cutting-edge, state-of-the-art materials with the respect and care one would normally associate with a baboon. Thank you, Kai. That will be sufficient. Santa paused and added, I will give everyone 3 hours to prepare. A substantial groan washed over the room. I will be taking Agents Alpha, Beta, and Iota with me on Santa Jet 1, piloted by Agent Delta. We will be supported by Agents Omicron and Nu in the field. Simultaneously, there were moans of disappointment from most, including Omicron, and 2 shouts of victory from Agents Alpha and Nu. This would be Agent Nu's first mission. I will have a short meeting in the big office with Agents Mu, Tau, and Theta to go over some last-minute details. I expect the rest of the team to be ready at the appointed hour. Is that clear? There were a few more barely audible moans, but general consensus in the nodding of heads. Good. Then let's have a short prayer, and then get on with it. Santa turned and looked at Agent Mu. If you would be so kind, Pops. Certainly, Nicholas. Agent Pops Mu stood and bowed his head. The rest of the agents assumed a similar posture and fell silent. Dear Lord, please protect your agents of goodness from harm and bring them back safely to us so that they may continue to serve you, all your creations, and all of mankind, from henceforth and forevermore. Amen. Amen. Santa raised his head solemnly, smiled brightly, and said, Okay, team, mush. Let's get sledding. There was a cheer of solidarity, and the room cleared out in a flash. Mo, Santa, and Theta were seated in the guest chairs of Mu's comfortable and finally appointed office. Mu was seated behind a scaled-down Victorian solid oak desk. His office was the top floor of this dome, and like Santa's bedroom, used the inside surface as the ceiling contour. Santa was already speaking to them from his comfortable chair, his legs crossed and his arms folded, trying to look as relaxed and confident as possible. Of course, this information is on a need-to-know basis, which is why I didn't elaborate at the all-hands meeting this morning. Of course, Agent Sigma, as always, said Agent Mu in that matter-of-fact tone he was famous for. And we shall use the highest level of security on this mission. He paused before continuing. What I need to know is why you are so anxious, and just what you'd see as the worst-case scenario. Does this Dr. Snow really have enough influence and power to pose as large a threat as you are suggesting? What lengths would he go to, and to what ends? Santa looked over at Pops and then continued around the circle, making eye contact with each of them in turn. That's just it. I suspect he has both the means and motive to commit the worst possible crimes. But I don't have all the pieces to the puzzle. I have a few hunches, but nothing concrete. But as I said earlier, I don't think we have time to wait and see. If we act now, we have a much better chance of stopping him before it's too late. This sounds a little crazy and impulsive, I understand, but I have been right before. Yes, and a few times I have been wrong, I admit. Such as the time we raided that factory and found they were really making ornamental snowmen, not the illegal kind. It happens to the best of us. However, I think this snowman is definitely not the decorative kind. Agent Theta chimed in. I agree with Santa, 100%. I've been watching this guy for about 3 months, and he is completely different in public than in private. We should also consider the fact that he made the naughty list 27 years in a row, and suddenly he makes the nice list this year? I don't like him, agreed Mo. For one thing, he kills helpless, furry little animals. That keeps him permanently on the naughty list in my book. That's right, agreed Santa. He says he's turning over new Snowflake, but I don't buy it. He continues to build factories in third world countries to exploit the workers and pollute the environment, unchecked and unrestrained. Frankly, I'd say he's still an ice hole. How he made the nice list is beyond me. Who did he bribe for that? The other three shrugged their shoulders in sympathy and defense, and Pops added his stamp of approval. Yes, I agree that this man's activities have put him beyond the category of simply interesting and into the category of extremely dangerous. Therefore, I endorse this maneuver as a necessary precaution. However, I suggest using extreme caution and restraint when dealing directly with this individual. Certainly, Pops, I will be extra careful. Thank you all for your input and support. I remind you not to spread any rumors around, which could have gone without saying, but I am making it official right now. We are on level 4 alert until I return. Agreed, said Pops. Good. I am leaving in 65 minutes, said Santa, looking at his watch. Miss Pennycandy has already set up the meeting with Dr. Snow, and they are sending a man to pick me up at Kennedy Airport. I am packed and ready to go. The only thing I have left to do is to go over and see what Kai has installed for me. He said he has a new smartphone to add to my collection. Yes, said Pops. He gave me one earlier this week. I think he added a few bells and whistles to yours, Agent Sigma. So make sure you get the full tour before you leave. That device could save your life, as well as those on your team. Do not take any unnecessary or unwarranted risks. You are far too important to this organization to lose. Agent Moo paused and then reached into his top desk drawer and pulled out a rectangular wooden box with a gold clasp and matching hinges. So maybe it's time you started carrying a sidearm. This is a Walter PPK. The CIA and British Secret Service swear by them. They're small, reliable, easily concealed, and carry the wallop and stopping power of an angry grizzly bear. Santa eyed the box but did not reach for it. I don't need that, Pops, old boy. I never have in the past. I don't want to break a lifelong habit now. This time I insist, Agent Sigma. As I have already expressed, you are far too important to lose, especially now that the world may be in ultimate danger. Yeah, chimed in Mo, and especially this close to Christmas. Santa hesitated, and then reached over and took the box. He opened it up and took out the shiny weapon. He was visibly uncomfortable holding it in his left hand, and he was left-handed. You will also need a holster, which Kai can supply for you. And if you need any instructions on its use and maintenance, please speak with Agent Gamma. Santa smiled wanly and put the gun back in its box, closed it, and secured the clasp. He was not looking forward to carrying it into the field, or even out of Moo's office for that matter. He rose to his feet and said, Splendid. So if we're all on the same lane, it's time to get this show on the road, right, boys? Agreed, said Moo. We'll stay in touch. Good luck, Nicholas, and be safe. Aren't I always, Pops? Santa motioned the others towards the door. He waited for them to lead and then followed them out. He was stopped by Pops just before he got through the door. He was pointing towards Santa's vacated chair. Oh, and Agent Sigma, while you're at it, take the gun with you, please. Santa turned and smiled sheepishly. Oh, did I forget something? I am not amused, Agent Sigma. Santa grabbed the box with a frown and went back to the door. Mo and Theta had already left him behind, off to complete their assigned tasks before the appointed deadline. Santa followed in their footsteps. Mo sat behind his desk with a serious frown on his face. Santa was the most stubborn person he knew. It was not a source of amusement to him, to say the least. Santa left Moo's office, closed the door, and found himself in the reception area. Miss Pennycandy sat at her desk typing. She was small, sweet, but plain, and wore the drab light green uniform of the support staff. She reminded Santa of a Salvation Army volunteer from the 1960s, complete with a bouffant flip style to her soft brown hair and just a touch of makeup on her face and gray eyes. She was ordinary by any measure of looks, but not by any measure of the heart. She was in love with Santa, as many women were. Pennycandy looked up from her typing and smiled a flirtatious smile. "Off on another adventure? Have room for me this time, Nick?" Santa smiled back with his best smile, and he was the best. "There's always room for you, Miss Pennycandy. I'd reserve a seat for you myself, but I don't think Pops could live more than 10 minutes without you." "Oh, ain't that the truth?" She shook her head to emphasize the point. "Well, if you can't take me to New York, I hear the French Riviera is beautiful this time of year. You've been, I suppose?" "Yes, many times." "Yes, but never with me." She smiled even sweeter and fluttered her eyes fruitlessly. Santa returned the gaze with a twinkle in his eyes. He never wanted to break her heart, or anyone's for that matter. It was sometimes and often a delicate balancing act, to put it mildly. As they were gawking at each other like lovesick teenagers, the intercom squawked to life. "Miss Pennycandy," was the filtered voice of Pop saying, "tell Agent Sigma to dispense with the usual chit-chat and get on with business. We have a planet to save and no time to waste." "Yes, sir, I'll convey the message." It was, of course, unnecessary for her to say anything, just as Moo intended. Santa moved a little closer to Pennycandy and offered her the box in his hands. "Here, Miss Pennycandy, to show you my gratitude for all you've done. A Christmas present from me to you." Pennycandy took the box and grinned like she was the happiest girl on earth. She started to open it, but Santa stopped her with a wag of the finger. Not until Christmas Day. You know the rules." She put down the box with a frown. "There's a good girl. I'll see you when I get back in about 3 days. Then maybe we can discuss that trip to the Riviera." "Sure, you say that now." "Good morning, Miss Pennycandy." Nick smiled again, his surefire charmer, and left Miss Pennycandy alone with her present and her dreams. 5 minutes later, Santa was standing in the Equipment Development Lab, or EDL, with Agent Kai. The gadget man was giving him the usual precautionary lecture, saying how irresponsible it was to leave next-generation technology within the reach of their enemies. Santa was trying to explain. "Well, Kai, it's not as if I just toss the gear about willy-nilly like a nincompoop. No, to me it's as if you toss the gear around willy-nilly just to annoy me. How can anyone lose everything? The law of averages would suggest that you would eventually be able to bring something back in one piece, or at all for that matter." "Well, I'm feeling especially fortunate, Kai, this close to Christmas. I believe this is the time." Kai just scoffed and continued scolding. "I sincerely hope so, Agent Sigma. I put over 200 elf hours into this piece of field equipment, and I'd like to be able to build upon that instead of starting from scratch, not that you care." The lab they were standing in was filled with gear similar to the lab Epsilon worked in, but Kai and Gamma's lab was even more pregnant with test equipment, machine tools, prototypes, and test platforms. There was a full auto shop, machine shop, tool and die shop, electronics lab, and an environmental testing area. Kai began to explain the new features of the smartphone he had just given Santa for the mission. "Now pay attention, Agent Sigma, and please put down that handheld snowblower." Click. "Please!" Kai's hair was now swept back, as if he had been in a wind tunnel at Mach 5. "I'm teaching a chimpanzee how to fly the space shuttle. It's basically bloody bootless." Santa put the snowblower on the lab bench and looked at Kai. "I don't know, Kai. I think we found a new look for you." He smiled and picked up the smartphone. It looked like your average phone, but Santa knew that that was not the case. "If you are through acting like one of our more primitive cousins, although that might be giving you the benefit of the doubt at their expense, we will start with the basic functions. Hold it flat in your hand and push the button on the top right side once, and then swipe the screen. This will turn it on for standard usage. Now shake the phone 3 times side to side and say the word swordfish. This puts you into secret mode, and there you'll see the Santa icon." Santa did as he was told, and a flashlight came on. "No, Sigma, 3 times briskly in a row and say swordfish as you are shaking it. Otherwise you will turn on the torch, as you can see. Shake it twice to turn off the torch. Good. Now 3 times and say swordfish." "Swordfish." Instantly, an icon of Santa in his hat and suit popped up in the center. "Good. Now place your thumb over the icon and say, 'Okay, Oogle, show me the list.'" Santa put his thumb over the icon and spoke. "Okay there, Oogle. The list, please." Nothing happened. "Please pay attention, Agent Sigma, and do not ad-lib. You must say the exact words, 'Okay, Oogle, show me the list.' Do you understand? It's not exactly learning Chinese now, is it?" Santa smirked and tried again. He was wasting a little time on purpose, but he was ahead of schedule. "Okay, Oogle, show me the list." And there was nothing again. "Sigma, as I instructed, your thumb must be over the icon. Please try it again, and don't play with me, if you can absolutely help it. If you keep it up, I'll give you back your stupid phone." Santa was enjoying this, Kai could tell, and it was really starting to piss him off. This just made it even more fun for Santa. But he decided that Kai had had enough of that gag, so he followed the instructions. Instantly, the 4-inch HD screen came to life. The screen lit up with the words, "The list. Press icon to select naughty or nice," or enter voice command to search by name. Below the words were 2 faces, one smiling and one frowning. "Okay, Kai, which one is naughty and which one is nice?" "Well, Sigma, isn't that obvious?" "Not really. Naughty people smile all the time, and a lot of nice people frown. Actually, I know for a fact that naughty people are more apt to smile than nice people, unless of course they're caught in the act." Kai just shook his head in disgust and continued with the lesson. "Just use your judgment which way I would do it. Or, if you prefer, just say the name of the person you wish to view. That way is faster when you don't know which list the person is on. Try that method now if you wish, but this is the format. You must say OK Oogle first, regardless of the command, followed by find, and then the person's name. Try it now, please." "Okay, Kai, I will." Santa looked at the screen and started. Before he could finish, the screen went blank. "Okay, Oogle, find Dr. Snow." There was no response. He showed the blank screen to Kai. "Well, of course, you took your sweet time about it, and the phone timed out and shut itself off. So if you are through wasting my time, please repeat the sequence with the 3 shakes again." 5 minutes later, Santa viewed the face of his new friend, Helmut Schneeflagen, a.k.a. Dr. Snow. The bottom of the screen was flashing the word nice. Santa suspected otherwise. Now for the really smart part. Some might even call genius. Although I can't take full responsibility for the app. I had a lot of help from Theta and Pi on the code, and so I'll call it a genius phone if that'll shut you up. What is this app, Kai? Oh, excuse me for the cliche, but it really is a quantum leap forward as far as the list is concerned. Now that you have the person on the screen, say the words, "OK Oogle, show current location." This time Santa did not wait, and when he said the magic words, the screen changed to a GPS map. A blinking red light appeared. It was a full view of the entire United States, and the red light was flashing in the vicinity of New York City. "Good. Now with 2 fingers of your other hand, thumb and forefinger preferred, touch the side of the screen on either side of the blinking light and sweep your fingers away from each other. No, not like that, like this." Kai helped Santa, and the view zoomed in until they could see the location on Manhattan Island. A second sweep brought them to where street names are visible. At the bottom of the screen, the address appeared. "He's on the Upper East Side," said Santa with a hint of surprise. "Helmut must be inspecting his real estate. We're going to meet Midtown this afternoon." "Yes, if you stop fooling around and let me finish my instructions, for your benefit and for the benefit of the entire planet. Is any of this sinking in, Agent Sigma?" "Of course, Kai, old buddy. It's a piece of cake." Santa paused and added, "By the way, nice job." "Thank you. It was rather tricky to put the... Honestly, Agent Sigma, can we stick to the essentials here? This is time sensitive, is it not?" Santa agreed soberly, and Kai continued. "The key to security is, of course, that only the exact sequence of actions and words will bring up the top secret data, and only works with your fingerprints and voice patterns. If anyone else tries, nothing will happen. And if they further attempt to circumvent security, the classified chip will self-destruct. This means the data is 100% secure, unless they somehow force you to access the data for them, which is highly unlikely. Am I right, Agent Sigma?" "Agreed. Most likely they would drug or brainwash me, which takes time and won't work on me. Plus, threats or blackmail won't do the job either. I am expendable in the ultimate case. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Or the one." "Exactly." Santa looked at Kai and smiled. He had to admit that the 200-plus elf hours had really paid off. "Good job, Kai, and I really mean it this time." Now Kai looked honestly proud and dropped his gruff act for the moment. "Are there any other functions of the Genius phone, I rather like that I can explain for you, Agent Sigma?" "Sure. Where do you go to play Angry Birds?" Kai's face turned crimson with rage. "I knew it! I knew you were still busting my bottom! Take the phone and leave this instant before I initiate the self-destruct sequence myself!" Santa laughed and apologized. "I'm sorry, Kai. Old habits. But before I go, I have one genuine question. How do I use this phone to make a phone call?" Mo packed Santa's bags pre-flight. It was 0 hour, 12 p.m. He promised to give Mo a call first chance, but he was going to be high as a satellite by then. Well, nearly. The Santa jet used stealth and scramjet technology and was capable of traveling at Mach 6, 6 times the speed of sound, or just over 4,500 miles per hour, at altitudes approaching 110,000 feet, the very edge of space. It was more like being a rocket man than a jet passenger. However, for this flight, they were going to travel a lot lower and slower. They did not need to travel around the world in 5.5 hours, as they would on Christmas Eve. They just needed to get from the North Pole to Manhattan Island in 2 hours. This would keep the G-forces down to a much more tolerable level and cause a lot less wear and tear on the aircraft. However, if they had to make a quick getaway, they would be the fastest and highest thing in the skies and invisible to radar. Agent Beta was in the cockpit as co-pilot and navigator for Agent Delta. Agent Iota was sleeping, so that left Santa alone in the cabinet with Agent Alpha, except when Beta or Delta came back for a beverage, bathroom break, or bite to eat. Alpha went by the alias Alfonso Zappa, and he was actually a very friendly guy, despite all of his narcissistic tendencies. Santa and Alpha were sitting comfortably on opposite sides of a small round table, with Alfonso's chair elevated to a comfortable height. They were happily sipping their favorite beverages to ease the stress of air travel. Santa had his eggnog martini, stirred, not shaken, and Alfonso was drinking a Long Island iced tea. For a little person, he could sure hold his liquor. He had to. Sometimes his life depended on it. They were cruising at a comfortable speed of 2,000 miles per hour at an altitude of 77,000 feet. The skies were fair and the headwind was light, and Delta had informed them that the weather was unseasonably warm in Manhattan, with partly cloudy skies, and they would probably touch down a few minutes ahead of schedule.
I know you had your choice of pilots today, so I want to personally thank you for choosing Delta. You all sit back and relax now, and I hope you'll come back and fly with me again real soon. You hear? Feel free to walk about the cabin, but keep your seatbelt fastened when you are seated. Observe the no smoking signs and be careful when removing belongings from the overhead bins, as they may have shifted during takeoff. It is a Santa no-no to disable the smoke alarms in the restroom, punishable by 3 weeks in a sin bin, no dessert, and mandatory early bedtime. Enjoy your flight.
I didn't know we had an intercom, Santa, said Alpha, looking forward at Delta, only 10 feet away. We don't, Alpha. Delta just likes to pretend. Per FAA regulations, Beta had led them through the pre-flight instruction. She had showed them how to fasten their seatbelts and how to use their seat cushions for flotation in the event of an ocean crash landing. She also demonstrated how to use the breathing mask in the event the cabin should lose pressure, urging them to help others, such as children and the elderly, but not before placing their own mask over their mouth and nose, securing the rubber strap around their head, and breathing normally. She showed them the emergency exits both fore and aft, and advised that if they did not wish to perform the duties near an emergency exit, they could have their seats reassigned. Santa and Alfonso looked around. There were no other seats. Well, I could switch seats with you, Santa, and I could do the door or not, your choice. That had been 5 minutes earlier, and now they were cruising at altitude with their Genius phones and their laptops turned back on. This was the life. So, Santa, tell me, you've been to the Big Apple before. Have you ever been to the little place on the corner of 42nd Street and 5th Avenue? I tell you, big guy, they have women there that will put the hoe back in your hoe, if you know what I mean. Santa just sipped his drink and stared at Agent Alpha. Was he kidding? Everyone knew that Santa was a complete gentleman, didn't they? Well, it was clear that either Alfonso did not know, did not care, or was a complete idiot. Santa was leaning towards the third one. Oh, and there's this club on Lexington where you drink margaritas right out of their navels. I mean, wow, is that a good time? Agent Alpha, please don't take this the wrong way, but would you shut up, please? Thank you. They sat there in silence for a few moments. Alfonso's mouth opened and then closed just as quickly. He was out of material. Santa looked at him earnestly and spoke. You are a good agent, Alfonso, and I do appreciate all you have done for the organization. Are you enjoying your work? Do you ever feel that you'd like to move on and try something else? Something a little less dangerous and stressful? Do you ever just want to get off the treadmill and say, enough, thank you? Well, I do the stair stepper, not the treadmill. I do 300 sit-ups and push-ups every morning. I bench press 360. My body fat is 4.5%. If you put me in fresh water, I sink like a rock. Santa often tried to help Agent Alpha to speak like a normal person. It was a long shot, but still worth the try. He might try again on the return flight, but probably not. Santa looked out the window and observed the boreal forests of Canada's Northern Territory from 77,000 feet. At this altitude, the curvature of the Earth was very easy to see, and the fact that it was a round world after all was obvious. This plane was a marvel of modern engineering, and he owned the only two in existence. Even so, with all of his money and technology, it still didn't seem to be enough. The world was tearing itself apart, no matter how hard he worked and no matter how many bad people he put away. Lately, creeps and crooks were multiplying as fast as the breeding cycle of a cockroach. Santa hated cockroaches and not much else. He tried not to hate anything, that was his thing. But sometimes it was really, really hard not to. He wished he could discuss it with Agent Alpha. Maybe because Alpha was so self-absorbed, he would most likely forget what Santa said and would almost certainly never tell anyone. But Alfonso had zero realization that anyone else had feelings. Alpha was a sad case and never thought he was anything but the greatest spy on Earth. What if Santa was like that? Where would the world be then? He shuddered to think about it. However, what made Alpha such a horror show as a person also made him a very good agent. He could be asked to do just about anything, and he would do it without flinching. If it came down to him or the other guy, Alpha would do everything in his power to make sure it was the other guy. He was the perfect soldier in many ways. Santa, on the other hand, had too much empathy to get it done sometimes. He was willing to sacrifice himself for the sake of others. He was a bad agent in that respect, but it also made him essential to the process. Almost no one but he could weigh the pros and cons and see which was the best solution. Alpha would blindly act on the initial assumption without even considering that it could be wrong or more harmful. In a very odd way, Santa wished he could be more like Alfonso. He also realized that he was staring at Alfonso. "What? Why are you staring at me, Santa? You're not, you know, are you?" "It's okay. I'm not going to judge you if you are." "Wait, who am I kidding?" "Yes, I will."